What's up everybody and welcome to a brand new video where I want to have a closer look at Resident Evil Village, or Resident Evil 8 as it is known. In this video I will sum up everything we know about the game and the direction it's going to take. So I will discuss the story, characters, gameplay, development of the game, and I will go through some rumors as well. What is also something very important I want to mention is that Resident Evil 8 almost certainly will feature multiple protagonists. So stick around if you want to know more about that. I will cover this game extensively from now on in the future as new information comes out. So hit that subscribe button and more importantly also the bell notification if you don't want to miss out on any future Resident Evil 8 content. So I want to talk a bit about the story first. Resident Evil 8 is a direct follow-up to Resident Evil 7 and will therefore, at least for a certain part of the game, continue with Mia and Ethan from the previous installment. So to give some context, we need to know the ending of Resident Evil 7 in order to get to the beginning of Resident Evil 8. So I have to warn you of obvious spoilers if you haven't played Resident Evil 7. In RE7, Ethan searches for his wife Mia, who is captured by the crazy homicidal Baker family on a plantation in Louisiana. As it turns out, the Baker family is driven mad because they are infected with a psychotropic mold called the D series, which makes them psychopathic, murderous and violent. Unfortunately for Ethan, Mia is infected as well. The person who infected the Baker family is a young girl called Evelyn, who aged rapidly as a side effect of the mutation and therefore looks like a grandma. Evelyn was experimented upon by a mysterious company called The Connections, with the goal of making a bioorganic weapon for use by the military. It turns out Mia was actually not kidnapped but worked for The Connections and was tasked with transporting Evelyn to a different location until she got infected with the mold. At a certain moment, Ethan gets a choice to give an antidote to Mia to save her from the infection. Although there is another choice you can make, this is considered canon as it was followed up on in the End of Zoe DLC. Mia and Ethan are then saved by Chris Redfield.
I'm Redfield.
Who now works for the newly formed Blue Umbrella Corporation, and they live happily ever after. Well, as we find out, that happily ever after part may have been short-lived, as we can see in the first trailer for Resident Evil 8. Ethan and Mia have now relocated to an isolated mountainous region where Mia gives birth to a child that we can clearly see in the trailer. This is until they are visited by Chris Redfield, who also changed appearance again. I guess Capcom just can't decide on a final design for everybody's famous boulder puncher. Chris then kills off Mia but lets Ethan live.
Sorry, Ethan.
Why?
Poor Ethan, that guy just can't catch a break, right? Anyway, from what we understand from the official story synopsis, Ethan then starts searching for Chris to find an explanation for his actions. This eventually brings him to the village. The village will serve as the opening area of the game, and it is here that Ethan meets other people such as this farmer.
They're coming.
It's obvious the townsfolk are very wary and repellent of outsiders due to the strange things that are happening around this area. There are some shots of other characters as well, including a girl and an older man. It is already leaked that this girl is called Emily in fact, and she is either a secondary protagonist or a supporting character. The man we see next to her is her father, and through a series of events she winds up searching for him. Though it is not yet clear what causes him to go missing. Now this is interesting because the first line of the trailer actually opens with "his story comes to a close." Now what Capcom is alluding to is not clear. But it could be that either Chris or Ethan doesn't survive this game. And if you ask me, that is more likely to be Ethan, since Chris is kind of synonymous with the RE series until now and the poster boy of the franchise next to Leon. I would also like to notice that in the trailer we hear and see Ethan speaking, but only in the village part of the trailer. Later on in the castle we cannot necessarily be sure if this is still him, as we don't have any visual or oral cues. So in this part of the game, are we playing with either Emily, Ethan or Chris? On Twitter, a leaker by the name of Dusk Golem mentioned that the game has at least 3 playable characters. 60% of the game will apparently be with Ethan, 30 to 40% as another character, which could be Emily, and 10% as another character. Now I just want to mention that Dusk Golem is considered quite a reliable leaker. For example, he accurately posted information about RE8's story and title days before the official unveil. so I would consider this information more than plausible. Then there is also the question who this mysterious character is. Until now, Capcom have left us completely in the dark about this character. He seems eccentric nonetheless, and kind of reminds me of Luis Serra from Resident Evil 4.
Well, I see that the president's equipped his daughter with ballistics too.
How rude!
Now let's dig a little deeper into these characters I mentioned before. There is something with this child of Ethan and Mia, and it is not yet clear what, but it is rumored that now because Mia is infected with the psychotropic mold from the previous game, she passes this on to the baby. Then there is also this mark that we see in the trailer and looks like a deformed baby fetus. The developers of the game did mention that this sign is key to the game, and they actually debated if they wanted to put it in the reveal trailer. Could it be that this is the virus-infected child of Mia and Ethan and that a cult a la Resident Evil 4 is looking for the baby? Later on in the trailer we see a group of Victorian age dressed women who could be pulling the strings behind this whole operation. So where does this game actually take place? We know Resident Evil 7's setting was set in rural America, but Resident Evil 8 takes us to Eastern Europe. The in-game currency is called the lei or leu, which is actually the currency used in countries such as Romania and Moldova. This part of Europe, while it is beautiful and has a rich history, is also known and often dramatized for its unique folklore filled with legends of the undead, witches and monsters. Interestingly, the castle you see in the trailer is discovered to be based on Peres Castle that is in actual Romania. As you can see here, the inspiration is striking. And I really think Capcom did a great job searching for reference points for this game and for the atmosphere they're going for. It should be mentioned that this castle has never been associated with the fictional Dracula and also not with the historical Vlad the Impaler. The castle apparently has over 130 rooms, and that makes it an excellent location for an RE game. One enemy featured in the reveal trailer is this werewolf. It looks like these beasts are terrorizing the local villagers. What is interesting about this is that these beasts can break through walls and ceilings. That would of course be an interesting gameplay mechanic. For example, this might require the player to rely on hearing to predict where the werewolf might strike. We can also vaguely see other enemies on top of this house. One of them wields a giant hammer and comes smashing down at the player. It's definitely a departure from the slower moving enemies in RE7 and the zombies from earlier titles. If you watch the trailer, you can really see the game leans heavily into the mystic and occult-like atmosphere. Kind of similar to Resident Evil 4. But that's not where comparisons with Resident Evil 4 stop. In the trailer we see this witch-like lady. Now who this is exactly is unclear. But she may be a wanderer and seller of some sorts, very similar to the merchant in Resident Evil 4.
Got something that might interest you.
The snowy village also bears a resemblance to the Resident Evil 4 town from the beginning of the game. In addition, the Victorian collection of people that appear near the end of the trailer are also reminiscent of Salazar and his castle from Resident Evil 4. There is some wild speculation going on that suggests that one of these women is actually Alex Wesker from Resident Evil Revelations 2, but at this moment those are just all theories. For inventory management, the suitcase system returns. Players will have to rearrange items in the suitcase to most efficiently manage their belongings. I always like this about Resident Evil games that use this, because it makes inventory management more of a fun little side activity. From what we understand, Resident Evil 8 was supposed to be a cross-gen game, but those plans were scrapped. In fact, there will only be a next-gen and PC version. That means the game takes advantage of next-gen technologies such as the PS5's and Xbox Series X's SSD. The developer already mentioned no loading times, and that's a great step forward. Naturally, we can see some next-gen perks in a small early gameplay video that was released. Just look at this incredibly detailed chandelier. It has literally hundreds of small details. I'm glad that Capcom is focusing fully on a next-gen experience only, so that no concessions have to be made to get the game running on other platforms. RE8 will release on the Xbox Series X, PS5 and PC. It was leaked by the same Dusk Golem as mentioned before that the game will support PlayStation VR. This is to be expected, as RE7 was PSVR exclusive. And if you ask me, this is a big win for PlayStation's already great PSVR catalog. though I hope other VR systems will also be supported eventually. It will definitely be a killer app for the eventually to be released new PSVR headset. The leaker also mentions the game's playtime is longer than Resident Evil 7, RE2 Remake and RE3 Remake, but not necessarily the same size as RE4. At the moment, a Nintendo Switch version is being rumored, but it is not clear when this version releases and more importantly how it will release. Clearly, the graphical fidelity of the version of the game for the Xbox Series X and PS5 versions can't be translated to the Switch directly. But Capcom may find a way around this. As you may remember, Capcom actually released Resident Evil 7 cloud version for the Switch, but through streaming only and solely in Japan. This was not necessarily a financial success, and Capcom mentioned it was done for the purpose of experimenting. So a version of RE8 for the Switch might literally be up in the air. Resident Evil 8 is slated to be released somewhere in 2021. I personally cannot wait to get my hands on this game. And also don't forget that Capcom is rumored to be working on a remake of Resident Evil 4 as well. Meaning that with a bit of luck, we might see 2 amazing Resident Evil games in the next couple of years. And with that, we've come to the end of this video. Now stay safe everyone, and I'll see you next time.